connect to that now. Okay, so now it's connected, and if it's connected, then the DC can know what can contact the nav can contact the DC. They just understand. They're just virtually being loaded under each other, so they should be able to communicate with each other. All right. So here it is. And you need to always create a little function in here so it can be triggered. So I created one called setNav functionality. And this needs to be called on document ready, just like that on document ready is just like a constructor constructing a function in ActionScript. So right here, set nav position. So this is my on document ready. Go ahead and put that here. Set nav functionality. Just to make sure it's working, let's go ahead and use my trace or my debug. Alright, back to here, and it says working. So I know that function's being called. Alright, so what I want to do is I want to be able to click these tags and load the content that they're hyperlinked to. So I don't want to jump to that, I want it to load in the same document. So I have to first find all these A tags. In ActionScript you can set up a for loop, or just find each one and set a listener to them. jQuery is like a lot easier. So I'm just going to say, hey, go and find nav A tags. Okay, go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and debug that information. So this is going to send us back a list of all the A tags. Oh, that has to be in single quotes. There we go. So go and find A tags inside the nav. jQuery object. So it's sending us back an object that's saying A. So it's found those. So now let's select all the A tags and add a click listener to it. So what the statement is saying is, jQuery, go find all my A tags and then add a click listener to it. This should look familiar because it looks much like ActionScript does. This little E is an argument that gets passed, and this is how each function knows which element has triggered it. So if we say E, and what I want to do is prevent that hyperlink from happening. So I'm going to say prevent default. So the default property for an A tag is just a hyperlink out. So I want to prevent that. And E represents the actual tag that has triggered it. So if I click the A tag, the first one, E represents that first one. If I click the second one, E represents that second one. So that's a pretty neat feature. And then let's go ahead and debug dump a word here. So we want that hyperlink to not work, and then we want to click work each time. So let's go ahead and save and test. Alright, so let's refresh just in case. Alright, there's work. So it's prevented it from hyperlinking. So what I want to do is use that hyperlink as my information. I want to go ahead and go get that hyperlink so I'll know what page to load. Might as well. Alright, so how we do that is first we need to go ahead and grab that hyperlink reference out of that A tag. So if you look at this little statement here, it's setting up a little variable. It's called page to load. We are selecting E, which is the thing that has triggered it. So that particular A dot target means go find that object. The attribute method goes out and finds any attribute that's in that tag, and the one we want to grab is the href. And the reason we say E target and not say the first A or the second A is because this one thing handles all three buttons. So it has to handle all three buttons, and so it takes a little bit of thinking on to figure out how it works. But if you look, here's the first one. There's that E.target, and there's the attribute right in the head of the tag. So if you remember back from Web 1, I really wanted you to know what an attribute is, and the reason is because if you don't know what it is, it's hard to figure out the next level. So here's that href, and what we want is this information here, so we'll know what page to load. So back to the nav there. So page to load, E.target, find which tag has been clicked, and then find its attribute, and then and this is the attribute we want. We want the href. You can grab class, you can grab class attribute, ID, any attribute that's written in that. So let's go ahead and debug page to load. See if it's working. Alright, so it wants to load content page 1, content page 2, content page 3. So that's working. So now that we've stripped that information, just use the load command. So you specify where you want it to load. So I want it to load in this shell tag right here, so where it says intro. So I specify that here, find the shell tag, then I use the load method, and then I pass it page to load. So page to load we've got from the href attribute, which is in each one of these A tags, and then so that's going to let it know what to load. Coming out that debug so that doesn't get in our way. And let's get some Firefox. Okay, so click this guy. There we go. So now it's loading each one into that shell, which is pretty darn handy. Yay. So just loading is cool, but it's not very interactive-y. So let's animate that. Within jQuery, there's an animate method that'll animate any CSS property, apply an ease to it. So this is just like tweenlight in ActionScript. So I want that shell. To kind of move down. I want its opacity to toggle, which means if it's 0, if it's 100%, it'll toggle down to 0, and if it's 0%, it'll toggle up to back to 100%. This is milliseconds. This is the ease. So I want that to animate. So I don't want it to load anything until that animation's done. So how I do that is, just like tweenlight, there's an Noncomplete function. So I'm just going to create a function. I could write it right in here, but that gets a little unruly. So I like to create a little function underneath. Load new page. Okay, and call load new page here at the end, so that's the last one. If we read the shortcut here, it says callback. So callback is like on complete. So on new page, and then we'll call this function. So we don't want that to happen, the loading, until that animation's done. So I'm going to cut and paste that there. Let's go ahead and get our debug, so make sure we're getting that information passed. Okay, so it's animating down, and it's tracing page 1. The reason why we don't see it is because once it's done loading, we want it to fade back in. So that's the next and last step. So once it's done loading, we want to have a little callback here. So press comma. Okay, I've got that in my report. So I create a function called fade the shell back in, and so once that's done loading, we've got a callback that calls this function right underneath it that animates it back in, takes the margin, moves it up, toggles the opacity back to 100%, does it in 200 milliseconds, and has that ease. So let's see if that works. Fade it down, load. Once it's done loading, fade it back in. Pretty sweet. Okay, there's our debug, so we don't need that anymore, so get rid of that. So that's the basic loading and being reintroduced to jQuery. So have fun with that.